What's up, everybody, and welcome to the first ever the Philadelphia Row Home Report. Listen, I'm excited because this is the first episode in a new series that I'm creating, and I'll tell you about who I am because I know I'm going to get a lot of people who are finding out about me for the first time as they watch this content or listen to this content, because this is a podcast, or shall I say webcast, that will be available on both video as well as audio. But this is the Philadelphia Row Home Report, and my name is Jimmy Williams. I'm 1/3 of the Black Wealth Rebels, 1/5 of the Black Wealth Project. Also, a lot of you may know me from Buy the Hood or a lot of the other things that I've done in the space of real estate and or finance. But we're going to get into a presentation for this first episode because this series is very special to me. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I have a whole podcast out there that drops every week called Stack Sats or Die Trying. So you may be hearing about, this from that, right? There's two loves that I have. One is real estate and one is Bitcoin. And I spend my days literally every day studying both of those things. And I have a platform to talk about the things that I learn and what I understand about Bitcoin. But real estate is actually my first love. I've been in this business for a long period of time, and we're going to talk about that shortly. So this is a platform I wanted to create to have a real estate conversation, but in a different way. This won't be like anything that you've seen on the internet or anywhere else that you may see this, where I'm going to talk about, nothing but success stories and brag and try to give you sort of like, different strategies. It'll be some of this, some strategy talk, but this is coming at real estate from a different level. It's talking about the data in real estate as well as the emotions involved in real estate. It's specific to Philadelphia because that is, where I do my business, is where I work, is where I have a very intimate understanding of the real estate market. And we're going to talk about the data in Philadelphia, but use it to have bigger conversations about real estate and what it means to community and society overall. I do want to start by saying that anything I say here is not investment advice. It's for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed professional in real estate, so I do want to make sure I say that. And I also want to say that these are just my thoughts. These are not the thoughts of any entity and or company that I may associate myself with or work with within the real estate space. Got to put that disclaimer out there because, I think that real estate is such a great topic and a great thing to study. I've spent my entire adult life studying real estate. I will continue to study real estate because it's nothing that you master. If anybody tells you they're a master, they're either lying or they're not telling the truth, because you have to constantly study and be a lifelong student to fully understand what's going on in the real estate space. I also want to shout out to everybody from the Village. For those who have no idea what I'm talking about, the Village is a community that we've built at the Black Wealth Rebels, right? And if you're in the Village, you're watching this early because before this hits any podcast platforms, before this hits, YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere else that it'll stream, this will be in the Village because we take care of our Village members first, because those are the people that we converse and build community with. And if you want to become a member of the Village, you can get in for free. You go to blackwealthrebels.com. That is blackwealthrebels.com. If you don't know what Black Wealth Rebels is, that's myself, my brother Corey, as well as my brother Kamari. And it's the community that we've built, and we do a lot of community engagement and work through there. So just go to blackwealthrebels.com and join the Village. But again, this is the first episode, and within this series of the Philadelphia Row Home Report, we're going to do a lot of talking about specific neighborhoods, what the data looks like. We're going to talk about, the emotions and trauma in real estate. But this first episode, I really want to tell you about who I am, my experience in the space, and also just to give you a kind of a synopsis of what the show will be about moving forward, because I look to build this into something that can stand the test of time, as a body of work that someone could come take a look at and say, okay, I got a different perspective of real estate, right? I've been in the podcast space. The first podcast was a sports podcast, War Room Sports. Shout out to my brothers from War Room Sports. We started that back in 2009. So I've been creating long form content since 2009. Now we're in 2025. So, you can do the math there. But my passion has always been real estate. And then my most recent passion, Bitcoin. I've already started to create content around that. So go to stacksatsorddietrying.com to take a look at that podcast. That's audio as well as video. But that's not what you're here for if you click this. Real estate is a part of all of our lives. And we have to have different conversations as it pertains to real estate. So what I did today was, for the first episode, and if you're listening to the audio, you still can follow along, because I'm going to make sure that I express myself and communicate in a way that you understand. But you may want to take a look at the video because there is a PowerPoint presentation for this first episode. Within this series, I do want to do a lot of teaching. I'm an educator at heart. Although I do business in multiple spaces, even the spaces that I operate from a business standpoint, I consider myself an educator. I consider myself a teacher. That's what I am at heart. So that's how I'll communicate through this series. So you will see PowerPoint presentations on some episodes. Some episodes will just be me showing data and going over the data. And some episodes will just be me sitting in front of the camera, giving you a conversation. So you'll get a little bit of everything. I will bring on guests in this series because I have so many friends who are specialists in Philadelphia real estate. So I'll make sure to have them on and, to have deep, engaging conversations. And also, I feel like this is a platform that I could share some of my landlord stories from, you know what I mean? Like some of the crazy tales and stories that I've been through within the real estate space. But with that being said, let's jump into the first episode by talking about who I am, because I know that a lot of people have no idea about my background, who I am, what I do. So let's get into it. So a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Jimmy Williams, right? I have a bachelor's degree in business management, a master's degree in real estate property management. I'm a licensed realtor with Realty One Group Purpose here in Philadelphia. Shout out to my sister Tracy, who is the broker owner of Realty One Group Purpose, and it's my business partner. 28 plus years in the real estate industry. I'm gonna stop there for a second because that 28 years, I've done a little bit of everything, which I'm going to talk about, further down as I get this bio. And I started at the very bottom, and I'm talking about fetching coffee in real estate offices. That's something that I've done. I had experience with. So I've been in and around real estate my entire adult life. I was a teenager when I started while in college. So I have a lot of years of experience, and I've seen all kinds of things. I've bought and sold multi-million dollars of real estate. At some point, I just stopped counting the actual number because that used to be something that I bragged about. Like, hey, I have such I stopped counting, but it's in the millions. I was a precious metal investor back in 2008. After the collapse, I was looking for some sort of strategy to protect my wealth, which led me into getting into Bitcoin a couple years later. Well, 8 years later, 2016. I'm certified as a Bitcoin professional, so I have put in a due diligence and study to be certified in Bitcoin. I'm also a crypto certified agent, so I've combined, the two things, the real estate and the crypto. Although I am not a crypto person, I'm a Bitcoin person, and there is a difference, and we're not going to get into that on here. Go to stacksats.com to learn more about that. Former licensed securities agent, so I've worked in all different parts of personal finance. In terms of real estate, though, I'm a data scientist, I'm an analyst, a real estate developer, a landlord, an investor. And I also have my license as an appraiser trainee isn't active, but I'm actually in the process of reactivating my appraiser trainee license, but that's a licensed credential as well. I'm also a certified Pennsylvania evaluator in the real estate space, which is another certification. So I work in real estate day in, day out. I'm looking at real estate data from the time I get into the office until the time I go to bed. I'm involved in real estate in some way. That is my business, right? Bitcoin is my savings, and I have a whole series talking about my love of Bitcoin and why I save in Bitcoin. But my business through and throughout is real estate, and it always will be real estate. And that's for a lot of reasons that we'll talk about as we develop this series known as the Philadelphia Real Home Report, right? I'm also a two-time published author. I've written multiple books. One is called Sports the Book, which you can find at sportsthebook.com. Own Your Time and Space is the other book that I co-written with my brother, Corey Camp. And in 2025, we have a new book on the way from the brothers from the Black Wealth Rebels. So we'll have a new book that's being published in 2025. So soon to be three-time, but currently two-time published author. I'm the co-founder of the Black Wealth Project, which is a think tank. It's made up of myself, Corey, Kamari, our sisters, Tracy, as well as Courtney. We make up the Black Wealth Project. And the Black Wealth Rebels is us three, right? We're like the BBD version of the new edition, if that makes any sense to you guys. That's myself, Corey, and Kamari. We create content literally every day. We create content daily. We have we have 3 live shows we do during the course of the week. On Wednesdays, we have a show called Wealthy Wednesdays, where we talk about personal finance. On Fridays, we have Freedom Friday, where we goes off the rails. We talk about a little bit of everything in terms of culture and finance. And then Sunday, we do a stock market show. So in the midst of that, we create other forms of content. This is my newest, my newest baby here, the Philadelphia Real Home Report. But again, I always have my other podcast called stacksats.com. So I'm putting that out there because on the podcast feed for By the Hood, right, I'm going to have all the different podcasts, but not Stack Stats, but this one here, the Philadelphia Row Home Report, I'm going to create a separate feed because I know this will have a different audience who are strictly here for real estate, and this is what we're going to talk about, real estate. But I have to talk about my other loves and things I do in this inaugural episode, just so you guys have an idea of who I am, so you know what questions to bring me, what concerns to bring me, and different conversations that we can have. I'm the founder of buythehood.com, which is a community organization. We're in the process now of applying to be a 501c to convert Buy the Hood from a for-profit to a nonprofit to allow us to do more work within the community. For the last 10 years, we've had a free camp for kids ages 5 and up, where we teach them about personal finance. One of the topics is real estate, the stock market, Bitcoin, the whole nine. And that's been going on literally for the last 10 years, now going into, year 11. I'm also the vice president and chairman of crypto for IB Big Investment Group, which is a all-black investment group here in the Philadelphia area. So I'm very proud of the work that's being done there in the community, and also building wealth with, a lot of people that look like me. So, I have a lot of different brands I'm involved with. JW Philly Realty, that's my, personal brand. Hood, IB Big, the Black Wealth Project. So you see all those things at the bottom of the screen. That is about, that's a little bit about me. And this is not about me sitting here reading off my bio. I'm not looking for any LinkedIn notifications of jobs or anything like that. I'm pretty okay with what I do, but I want to give you guys a little bit about my background. I'm also an international speaker. I've spoken on multiple continents as well as countries. I do teach various classes. I teach a lot of continuing education classes in the state of Pennsylvania for real estate professionals. So I'm heavily engrossed in Philadelphia real estate, and I spend my days in life committed to understanding Philadelphia real estate and how to be of service and use real estate kind of as a tool to create value within Philadelphia and also within my personal community. So that's about who I am, right? Now, let's talk about today's presentation, which is going to be, this first episode of the Philadelphia Row Home Report, where I want to talk about the idea of real estate as it pertains to data as well as emotion. So I call this real estate decisions, where data meets emotion, right? So winning in real estate requires both analytical thinking and emotional intelligence, right? And this presentation today is going to explore how to balance the data-driven decisions with the emotional aspects of property investment. So real estate has a lot of emotion involved in it. I come from the standpoint as someone who's a data scientist in the space, where I want to make decisions that are objective and data-based decisions. But I also live in a real world where I understand that sometimes there is a clash. But this entire body of work, known as the Philadelphia Row Home Report, is going to talk about both and talk about how we need to use both, right? I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of trauma in real estate, which is going to be its own show called The Trauma in Real Estate. And we're going to talk about that, right? But here, I just want to talk about data and emotion and how both of them play a part when you're making decisions in the real estate space, because that is kind of the groundwork of my idea behind the Philadelphia Row Home Report. I don't want this to be, just giving game or giving you the next play, or even interviews with people who are successful and them giving you their game or their next play. I want to have deeper conversations about real estate, because from my standpoint, the reason I say real estate is one of the best things to study is because real estate has an impact on all of us, whether we're talking about the idea of being able to grow food, right? Your zip code can dictate the kind of education you get, the kind of services that are available to you, the kind of healthcare you can get. Real estate impacts all of us. And it's something that when we talk about the idea, and, I hate this buzzword, but the idea of generational wealth, real estate encompasses a lot of that. So real estate is important to how a city functions, right? Real estate is important to every aspect of life. And I personally believe that all wealth and all value accumulated flows back to the land, right? All value flows back to the land. And we can talk about that in the future as well. But let's get through this presentation. There's a balancing act when it comes to real estate, right? There's an emotional component, because real estate represents homes, dreams, legacy building for families and investors. All of these things are part of the idea of real estate, right? But there's also a reality, which I'm calling the business reality. And if you're looking at the PowerPoint, you see how it slid out of there a little bit. That's because of the platform I'm using to show this. I do want you to know the actual PowerPoint it's perfect. You know what I'm saying? But the business reality is that investments in property and real estate must deliver returns, appreciate in value, and generate sustainable income. If you're looking at this from an investment side, but also from the side of building wealth for your family, even if it's in the place that you lay your head, you have to understand the reality. You have to use data to kind of balance out the emotions of, hey, I love this house, right? So you have to balance out the emotional component with the reality of business, because to have true success, top investors, they know precisely when to trust their feelings and when to rely on analytics. Let me repeat that again. You have your feelings, but you have to know when to rely on analytics, right? Because at the end of the day's going to end and the numbers are what the numbers are. Regardless of your feelings, the numbers are what the numbers are. Because I see people get hurt because they relied on their feelings so much and they're ignoring the numbers. But the numbers are there to tell a story. Now, the numbers can be in front of you. It's up to you whether you believe them or not, or how you utilize them in your decision making. This is about real estate, but this is also about life. The thing is, real estate that sounds like a great t-shirt. Real estate is life, but it's true, right? The data can be in front of you. How you decide to use it will distinguish whether you can be successful or not. So why data matters? Let me talk about a little bit about why data matters. And this is a conversation I love to have. I love to talk about the data as it pertains to real estate, but how it pertains to everything, whether we're talking about any investment, the stock market, right? Whether we're talking about, we could be watching sports, right? Data matters, because here's the first thing that data does. Data helps to reduce risk. When you understand comps, rental rates, and market trends, you can avoid costly mistakes that you make by not looking at the data if you're strictly just moving on emotion. It also reveals trends. Data identifies emerging market opportunities before they become mainstream. If you're following the data in a specific neighborhood and things start to change in a neighborhood and you focused on that neighborhood, you'll know before others. There's certain areas that I actually work in now in terms of being a realtor, as well as in terms of being an investor, as well as being someone who is committed to a community, because I know where the community is going. Where I lay my head was based on data, right? I recently bought a new home last year in 2024. I've been here almost a year now. The decision to buy in this specific area, you know, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Shout out to my sister Tracy. She put me down. Hey, there's a new development coming over here. I looked at the data and I said, yo, I need to move there. Not as an investor. I want to move there because I'm using data to make that decision. You know, and I know that's kind of crazy for some, but I don't get emotionally, and I try not to get emotionally involved in bricks. Sometimes it's more difficult, right? But the data is going to help me make my decision because I understand the trends and where things are going because I'm consistently looking at the numbers, right? So it helps to improve valuations. Accurate ARVs, after repair values, and cap rates depend on clean, relevant market data. We're going to go into ARVs as we build out the Philadelphia Row Home Report. We're going to talk specifically about cap rates and why cap rates are important. We're going to talk about rate of return, cash on cash return. All those things we'll get into as we build out this series. Shout out to everybody in the village. Within the village, there is a section on real estate valuation and analysis where I've already put multiple classes that are back there. So if you join the village, you get access to all of those classes on real estate valuation and analysis. That I'm going to continue to put stuff there that won't be on the Philadelphia Row Home Report because they'll be more general about real estate. So make sure you join the village if you don't do anything else. If you're listening to this on the audio, you can join the village by going to blackwealthrebels.com. And if you're watching this, go to blackwealthrebels.com. But let me get back into why data matters. Location clarity. Neighborhood statistics directly impact property value and ROI potential. So the reason I'm specifically talking about Philadelphia, right? Although you can go to rowhomereport.com, it will still lead you to the Philadelphia Row Home Report because I own both domains. But the reason I'm talking about Philadelphia specifically is because it's something that I have an intimate knowledge of. And Philadelphia is very unique in the grand scheme of things as it pertains to real estate because we are truly a city of neighborhoods. And what I mean by that is block to block, things can change. It's why when you're looking at data on a macro level, most people use things such as census tracts. They use zip codes. In Philadelphia, census, I'll tell you right now, and this may come off a little bit controversial, but it's true. In Philadelphia, census tracts are irrelevant. Zip codes are irrelevant in Philadelphia, right? I always laugh when I'm on Instagram and I see someone put up a listing of a property and they're asking X for it. Let's just say $500,000. Then, and it's in Philadelphia, and I'll go through the comment section just for a laugh, and I'll see people say things like, who would want to spend $500,000 to live in Philadelphia? Who would want to do this? All of Philadelphia is bad. There's nothing but crime in Philadelphia. And I'm like, are you guys looking at the data, or are you speaking with emotion? There's a difference between making those kind of proclamations when you're speaking from emotion because you have trauma associated with Philadelphia and you're not looking at the data to understand that in Philadelphia, there's still opportunity to build wealth with land and real estate. When you talk about the northeast section of the country, Philadelphia still has some of the most affordable real estate, and it won't be that way forever. So if you don't get your piece of the land now, you can be in the comment section talking that all you want to, but it'll be a point in time where you're going to sit back and say, man, I remember when I said this about that neighborhood. Because the fact of the matter is, people can ask whatever they want to ask for a property. But if you go back and do the knowledge, right, what you'll realize is some of those properties have sold for the numbers that people are asking for them. People want to live in a city. People want to live in a city. They want to have access to all sorts of things such as public transportation. They want to have access to a nightlife. They want to have access to things. So being in a dense city is something that is going to keep increasing in terms of the values of those parcels of land. And when you look at something like a New York, when you look at something like a Boston, when you look at something such as a Washington, D.C., and you look at Philadelphia in that corridor, and you start to realize, like, I need to make a move here. But the reason I say that census tracts and zip codes don't work are because they're arbitrary. They're not based on data. They're arbitrary numbers that just aren't based on data, which is why you have to do a deeper dive and figure out how to navigate certain neighborhoods and carve out certain neighborhoods for yourself as a real estate investor. If you're looking at this and you're a realtor, or you're just looking to, make a good purchase, you want to figure out what is that neighborhood telling you, not what the census tract says, not what the zip code says. Because I can give you zip codes where on one end of the zip code, you're living in a lap of luxury, and the other end of the zip code, you're in a war zone, but you're still in the same zip code, right? Because those are arbitrary numbers. It's not based on any sort of analytical thinking or any sort of carving out of specific neighborhoods. And Philadelphia truly is a city of neighborhoods. Let me stop going off on tangents so we can get through this presentation, because this is the first episode. All episodes won't be long. This is the first episode, so let me get through it though, right? So let's talk about how emotions influence decisions, because I've heard this all the time. Oh, it was love at first sight. Buyers often fall for aesthetics without realizing the numbers don't add up, right? I've seen buyers fall for things and they are willing to pay more than even the appraised value of a property because it's just love there. Not always a bad decision if again, nothing is always one way, but I'll say this, look at the numbers. There's also the biggest thing that's a factor in all asset classes, in my opinion, and that's FOMO, fear and FOMO. Panic buying or fear-based inaction can derail long-term wealth building. That's in real estate and that's in everything else. There's also a certain thing called seller attachment. Emotional pricing slows sales and creates unnecessary market friction. I'm going to do a full episode. I've already started to outline out about the emotions involved with pricing your property, because I've seen it work in ways where people undervalue where they live because of the trauma associated with it, and people overvaluing the property they have because of the emotions that are associated with it. Right? Whether that's someone leaving you a property that was your great aunt who you love dearly, and the numbers say one thing, but you have an emotional attachment. Those things right there can be problematic as you're trying to make a smart decision, right? There's also investor bias. Sentimental connections often cloud judgment about optimal exit timing. If you're an investor and you have a property that's made you a certain amount of money for a long period of time, then you may not, you're anchored in and you may not want to really get rid of that property, right? So there's all sorts of value as it pertains to real estate. There's an assessed value, a market value, an investor value, value in use. There's different types of value, right? But when you're making a decision, you have to make a decision that's based on data, regardless of what value proposition that you're looking at with that property. And I know for some people watching this for the first time, you're with me. You understand everything I'm saying. For some people, it may fly over your head, and that's okay. Leave me comments. Let me know if some of the things you want me to, dive deeper into or explain further, because again, this is about education. So I want to make sure I take time to explain and that people understand what it is I'm trying to communicate. But the idea is emotions can influence your decisions, but you have to understand that emotions can influence you. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. All of us are emotional, but I think self-awareness is key. I know that I can be emotional over certain things, so I take a step back and don't rush decisions because let me see the data. No, Jimmy, I wish it. What does the data say? Data is where all right, let me stop because I'm about to go off on a tangent again. I digress. Let's talk about the balance though. Here's where you really get into becoming great in terms of real estate and investing in general. Emotions drive action, but data guides direction, right? So emotions are somewhat needed because you have to take action. Don't sit around, watch every episode I created of the Philadelphia Real Home Report because I'm going to put out episodes. I'm going to try to say weekly, at the minimum bi-weekly, but I'm going to try to say weekly because, I'm out here doing the work. I'm not just creating content. I'm actually doing the things I'm talking about. I'm living my raps. But emotions drive actions in a data guides direction. So if you love a property, but ensure the numbers support your enthusiasm, don't buy a vibe. People be out here buying vibes like, yo, I feel good about this. Let me buy this. Buy verifiable value. If you find something you like, don't buy the vibe. Go do the numbers. You got to do the numbers, right? I know that sounds like it's not proper English, but that's what we're going to say here. Do the numbers. You know what I'm saying? Do the numbers. Check the feel, but then check the facts, right? This feels like home. Cool. It's cool that it feels like home, but it should be followed by running comps and doing your inspections. Inspections are important. Shout out to all my favorite inspectors. I wouldn't name some of y'all, but, I might be looking for sponsors soon. So I'm going to hold off in case I'm looking for sponsors, but run the comps and do the inspections, yo. Let data be the anchor when emotions get loud. Always keep that in mind. Be self-aware. Let data be the anchor when emotions get loud. The emotions can get loud, but let data anchor you. So keep that in the back of your mind. There's nothing wrong with emotions. All of us have emotions. In the words of H-Town, man, emotions make you sad sometimes. And I apologize for folks who have no idea what I'm talking about, but, I'm all about culture, right? And, H-Town, never mind. So especially during negotiations, pricing discussions, and risk evaluations are important. Let the data be the anchor when emotions get loud. Keep that in mind. If you don't know nothing else from this episode, let data be the anchor when emotions get loud. That's a bar. I outdid myself with that point. Anyway, lead with logic, move with heart, right? The data is logic. You move with heart. And here's some quick data for you, right? There are 2x better returns. Balanced investors typically see double the returns of emotionally only investors, right? There's studies that were done. 80% in terms of long-term success, most sustainable portfolios balance both analytical and emotional factors. And from a growth potential standpoint, data-anchored emotional investors scale their portfolios 3 times faster, right? So great real estate decisions honor both the numbers and the narrative. That's why I said there's nothing wrong with emotions and there's nothing wrong with narrative. But if you marry the two, it's how you become a super investor, right? Emotions make the journey meaningful, but data keeps you in the game long term. I just had a conversation with a close friend of mine who's also a client. I'm not going to put your name out there because I don't know if you're okay with that. But one of the things is acting as a realtor, and I was joking with him about it, is that you're kind of a counselor too. You talk people off the ledge, right? But one of the things we were talking about is whether you're trying to just make a quick buck or are you building something long-term, right? Because when you're building something long-term, you're reinvesting in your business. You're putting up money to the side. You're building something long-term. And you do that by being data-driven, right? Data is your anchor. Always remember that. Lead with logic, move with heart. Lead with logic and move with heart. So today's episode is really about what to expect from this specific podcast, this specific webcast, I'll say it. The reason I use webcasts and not podcasts is because podcasts really came from one company and people just started calling them podcasts, but they're really webcasts. You know what I mean? Shout out to Leo Laporte, who gave me that breakdown and broke down the difference between a webcast and a podcast. But I digress. Getting back to the point. The point is, that's what you have to look for in this series as we continuously build out this series. You can go to phillyrollhomereport.com, which will take you to where we're going to store both the audio and video of every episode there. Also, all podcast platforms, you can look up, the Philadelphia Roll Home Report. If you're already on the By the Hood podcast feed, it'll be there as well. I just want to make sure that I get this information into as many hands as possible. But this is the new podcast coming, it's under the umbrella of the Black Wealth Rebels. Everything I do moving forward at this point is under the umbrella of the Black Wealth Rebels. Even by the hood, the community work is under the umbrella of the Black Wealth Rebels. But there's certain things that I want to make sure that as a creative, I am putting out there. And it's the things that I do, because one of the things about teaching is it helps you become a better student. So as I learn more, because I'm still constantly learning, I'm still creating new mental models on how to use real estate, especially as someone who considers themselves a Bitcoiner. I'm marrying the two in a way that most people aren't. And it's something that I'll talk about even on, this platform. Again, I do have multiple podcasts that I'm trying to drop weekly. One is going to be on real estate and one is going to be on Bitcoin. That'll tell you all you need to know about me. But I'm very excited about this Philly Row Home Report. You can also just go to rowhomereport.com. Like I said, I got that domain too. But Philly Row Home Report, I'm very excited about it. To talk about my city of Philadelphia, which I love dearly, to talk about the real estate in Philadelphia, to build with other investors. This, and also listen, I'm not even gonna lie to you. One of the great things about doing this is, hey, you may find me and you may need some services in terms of real estate. Like, as I get more into the appraisal side, you may need some help with that. You may need help selling your property. You may need help renting a property. I always have properties for rent and for sale, by the way. You know what I'm saying? I got it for cheap, but I'm not using this to market that. But I'm saying, like, by me creating this content, maybe you need help in real estate, reach out to me. I am a big proponent on education, but also community building. That's what I spend my life doing, studying real estate, building in communities, and studying Bitcoin, of course. Can't go a show without mentioning that. But Philly Row Home Report is going to be a passion of mine. I have so many things. I've already got at least 5 PowerPoints done that I want to bring to this show. And I'm going to get down to the basics in terms of what is land? What's the difference between real estate and land? Why is land important? I want to get into the idea of being a Georgist as it pertains to land. What is it? What is Georgism? Like, so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about properly valuing real estate. I want to talk about all kinds of things as it pertains to real estate, because real estate is almost like the base, but from that, it's like the bottom of a tree, right? So real estate is a tree, but these various branches that come off, these conversations that surround real estate are endless. They are endless. Like I said, we are all affected by property in one way or the other. All of us are. All of us are. I want to talk about geo arbitrage. I want to talk about all things surrounding real estate through the lens of someone who works in Philadelphia real estate. So Philly Row Home Report is something to look forward to for me, the creator. And also, if you guys are out there and you have any feedback for me, please leave me feedback. If you hate the idea, tell me you hate it too. That's also going to give me motivation, but tell me you hate it. If you love the idea, give me the love too. Listen, I spread love, spread more love. Share this, like this, comment this. If you have someone in the area looking to be an investor or looking to, just engage in real estate, send them this episode. You know what I mean? These episodes will show you what I'm about and just how deep I'm dug into the space, and just the love I have of Philadelphia real estate. And I say all that to say, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys for watching. This has been episode 1. It took me a long time to make episode 1, but I promise you episode 2 will not take that long for me to come back. And, go on this journey with me as we talk about Philadelphia real estate and as we talk about real estate in general and how it affects everyone's life, right? This is the Philadelphia Row Home Report. My name is Jimmy Williams. Please stay safe out there. I love you. Peace.